Hi, everybody. This is Sophia Mona Lisa from the Roseville Mystery School and the Golden Ray Center. And I'm here today with my dear friend, Carolina Grace, the founder of the nonprofit Heart-Led Humanity. And she invited me to share some space with her to have another heart-led conversation. It's been about 6 months since we did our last conversation, and 6 months feels like a lifetime ago.
I think it's that long. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, a
And
lot
there's
has
so much.
changed, a lot has evolved since then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. So much is coming up. So yes, it's always wonderful to have these conversations because they're so spontaneous and organic. You never quite know what's going to come through. But we did sort of have a chat about, some of the things that were coming up and how they in essentially and naturally, of course, are all very interlinked. Um, and pretty much every day I see something that we've always done a certain way in the old world, and I'm saying, well, how does that relate to the new energies and the frequencies that we're bringing in and embodying? How does that now show up for us? So one of the first ones that I raised with you was about value. How do we define our sense of value in the new world? Because in the and I'm using these words very loosely because we all have slightly different definitions, but we could say that the paradigm that we've been in, that's more three related to 3D, moving towards the 5D plus, which was what I'd probably call the newer world. So how do we view this sense of value? Because it was so clear, wasn't it, in the old world,
yes,
value,
yes,
even the word value equates to money.
exactly, exactly. Well, and in astrology, the second house, which is Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, is about value, and it's about resources, your tangible and your intangible resources. And Venus, as the goddess of love, is also a goddess of abundance. And so that second house does relate to money, specifically in terms of value and resources. And so, Uranus has been making this journey through those Taurian energies. And by doing so, is bringing those new world 5D plus energies into that realm, into this realm. What are those new higher frequency ways in which we can express our value and acknowledge value and embody value? So this is a whole transformation
Yeah,
that's
we're being
taking place
supported.
within humanity at this time.
Yes, and for me, it's when I look at the differentiation between the two worlds, I always, well, I typically, I say always, that's a bit too broad, tend to go from head to heart. Head is the old paradigm, the way we seek everything to pass through our filter of the brain, to now moving into the filter of the heart. Left brain, which is the more masculine way of seeing the world, the linear, logical, rational function, that's very much the old world. And the right brain is more associated with the compassionate female natural behavioral preferences. But equally, I've just gone and lost my complete train of thought. Oh, yes, it's about the old world, it's about the external world, isn't it? It's
Mhm.
us always looking to the external world for our answers, because the head has been told that you want to find an answer to a question, you run it through your head and then you look for the answer.
Right.
Whereas now it's running it through the filter of the heart and feeling the answer as it arises in the moment through our guidance, but it's an inside out job.
Yes, it
So
is.
for me, that value is not how much will somebody pay me for my services. It's what is the value I put on myself? What is it about myself? What are the qualities that I most value, I most hold dear, using that word dear, you know, that's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Dear
Mm-hmm.
as in loved and dear as in expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Hold dear to myself.
Right.
And what are the values that I want to express as part of my value that I'm developing? So what have I got? It's doing that kind of evaluation
Right. Exactly.
personally, but from the inner perspective, not how
Right.
many skills have I got, what qualifications have I got, what's my status, what are my contacts,
Mm-hmm.
how much money have I got to invest in my business, or how much am I bringing in that the bank will recognize to lend me money? All
Right.
the external attributes that we've been taught to worship.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much, who am I? Who do I want to become more of? And what is it all about me that I value now? So
Right.
that others sense, feel through the embodiments.
I love how you say, who am I? Because I've been talking about that first eclipse that we had in April on the Aries Libra axis that is kicking off this next 2 years of humanity being brought back into alignment by these eclipses on the Aries Libra axis in terms of the path of conscious equal partnership. And Aries as a sign ruling the first house is all about, who am I?
Yes.
Libra, the ruler of the seventh house, partnerships. Who am I in partnership with myself? Conscious equal partnership with myself, with my higher self. And who am I in partnership with others? And when that balance comes back into play, which is totally an inside job, which is totally heart centered, bringing the masculine and the feminine into balance in the heart, then that reality starts to show up in your external world, and you start to exchange energy in this very conscious, equal way where it's all about value and worth. Everybody is just as valuable. Everybody is just as worthy as the next. And so now you can share what you're creating through you, what I'm creating through me, in a way that this hierarchy of, well, you know, sports players get paid way more than teachers because society values them more than they do education. That's going to dissipate. And so even with this Uranus moving through Taurus, changing the way that we consider values, this whole next 2 years on this Aries Libra eclipse is bringing humanity into that alignment.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Because it really is about, in the past, our external world has commanded us to evaluate and judge, to say, your value is more than my value, or their value, you know, we value them more because of what they have externally in the world, as opposed to who they are,
Right.
as an integrated or an embodied, evolving human being, as
Right.
opposed to doing in the outside world. And it's and we're still at that stage, of course, as this is still very much the front pioneering line of us bringing this forward and being this.
Right.
It's fascinating to watch as it's unfolding. And I also mentioned to you, I have somebody that I do more traditional but holistic leadership coaching with, who's incredibly heart-led, and we're working on the more heart-led way of influencing and leading. And she's been told that she has to go through these very in-depth psychometric evaluations, which ultimately put you into a box.
Right.
Yeah. And therefore, instead of exploring the expansiveness and the integration of your two, you know, your sacred masculine, your sacred feminine, how do they work together, the head in service to the heart? It's about labeling yourself having put yourself through a structured system that evaluates you like an algorithm,
Right.
input, and it spits out an output that says, right, now I want you to know you are this, this, and this. So when you're in this situation, you will be doing that, that, and that, and working
Right.
with this person. And I find it, and given that the organization she works for is a humanitarian organization, where, you know, the antithesis of heart-led in this kind of approach.
Right.
But this is very much the entrainment of the old world hanging on and saying, but we want you to fit in the boxes because we can control you, we can manage you, we can
Right.
lead you.
Right.
If you are fitting into the boxes, we know where to take you if you go along with us.
Right. Right. And it's interesting that you say that the organization that she's with that has made this declaration is a humanitarian organization.
Ostensibly.
Well, those are Aquarian energies. If you're being humanitarian, Aquarius ruled by Uranus, moving through Taurus, this 3D world. And so, are you really being humanitarian, which are the illuminated frequencies of those Aquarian Uranus energies? Or are you shifting into the shadow side where now you're starting to get into AI and becoming transhumanist? All of that is the shadow side of Uranus through Taurus as well.
Perfect.
And as Pluto starts moving deeper and deeper into Aquarius, which has to do with the quantum and the illuminated, the AI could be illuminated or shadow. I think it's a tricky thing.
Yeah.
As you mentioned in our previous conversation, that becomes like the new toy. Let's explore this AI. What can
Yes.
we do with it? Where can we use it?
Yes.
And so we're going to see more and more of that over the next 2 decades as Pluto's transversing Aquarius, and the catch is going to be the balance. How can we use it for the good? How can we use it to serve humanity and not allow it to be used as a tool to control humanity through transhumanism?
Absolutely. Perfectly put. And this is where we have to go back to the inside out job, because
Yes.
unless we allow our self-knowledge and self-mastery to guide us through the heart, so that the head is in service to the heart,
Right.
we risk getting caught up with this bright, shiny object that we can use. Oh, look how we can use this. You know, there are so many myriad ways we can play with this,
Right.
thing. And it's like the whole world has suddenly become entranced, you know, like caught like a deer in the headlights.
Exactly.
With this amazing new toy that can be used in anything. And the entrancement is so captivating that people go to their heads
Yes.
and forget their heart. So they're looking to the outside world for what can I create using this synthetic filter,
Right.
versus how can I allow it to serve my own inner creativity
Mm-hmm.
and my organic, natural senses, versus enslave me by allowing it to take me in the direction via the head into the future. So I see us at this very pivotal point.
We are.
Artificial, synthetic, organic, natural, head,
Yes.
heart. Which one do we choose? Which one do we allow to guide us?
Exactly. And
Consciousness
this
or
is going to be
unconscious?
an issue that is front and center as Pluto is moving through Aquarius, because Pluto in its illuminated energies is all about empowering you. In its shadow energies, it's taking your power away. It's going into that enslavement mentality. And so this is something that humanity, which Aquarius as an energy is all about, the collective consciousness of humanity. Is humanity going to choose to allow these frequencies to empower them? And with this realignment to conscious equal partnership that's happening over this Aries Libra axis allow us to step forward into a global community that is conscious, that is equal, or are they going to choose to go down that path of AI, where AI takes control of everything? They've given their power away again.
And taking us into worshipping man-made, ego-led, synthetic and artificial, that man knows best,
Right,
that man can create better than Mother Nature,
right.
and that the ultimate salvation of humanity and the planet lies in man's ego
Mm-hmm.
to create
Mm-hmm.
and determine that, that our man-made synthetic biology is superior to our natural organic DNA, which we haven't, we've only explored this much of, which is our natural organic connection to the divine. So it's really, I just see us like lemmings at this cliff point and saying, all right, am I going over the edge,
Right,
following the path that's laid out for me? Oh,
right,
there we go, over the edge.
right.
Or do I say, no, actually, I am going to consult within and say, where am I placing my power? Am I giving my power to the external world, the artificial synthetic man's ego? Or am I going to reclaim my power through my own sacred portal of the heart, my instant reconnection to the divine, resource? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we've been leaving the Piscean age, which was the era of the external teacher, as in the gurus, as in Christ, etc., Buddha. And we're now moving into the Aquarian age, where it's self-guidance. So it's learning to go inwards to trust our own inner guidance. Is that correct? Because that's my understanding.
Well, and I will speak to that, but first I want to back up to what you said about nature,
Yeah.
synthetic reality, because this speaks again in a subtly different way to this Uranus through Taurus journey. Taurus is nature. It's getting down in the grass and rolling around in the mud and all of the flowers and the beauty of nature. Uranus, again, in the shadow, is taking what Mother Nature has as a resource for us and making it synthetic. So this is something that's been on the world stage and in the consciousness of humanity. And yes, we have shifted from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age. And, it's interesting that you mentioned Christ as an external guru. And what I would choose to say around that is that the human, the man, Yeshua, who embodied the Christ, Yeshua, what is the external guru, but the Christ that moved through him, the cosmic Christ, is that inner guru. And because we have built into our genetic coding that we are Christed beings, as we move into more of those Aquarian energies, Pluto through Aquarius, empowerment through our Christed selves will be waking up, and that Sophia Christ consciousness will start moving through us and creating through us. And so, yes, that attention to looking for spiritual guidance and teachers outside of us is naturally going to move to looking into our own inner self, that Sophia Christ consciousness that we embody.
Absolutely. It's amazing how it and how we take terms as well, or images, how we interpret images such as Yeshua, Christ, and how they have different meanings in different contexts.
Yes. Yes.
And again, that's man-made.
Yes, it's part of the spell casting.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the coronation.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
And one of the reasons I didn't tune into it was I immediately thought, wow, they've got a captive audience. I wonder what artificial means they will be using to entrain the audience, whether it's symbolic, audio, visual, airwave borne, you know, how they will be passing on some entrainment frequencies to prepare people for what the next step might be. Yeah.
And that is absolutely a beautiful description and manifestation of the intercepted seventh house in the chart of the coronation that is those Aquarian energies.
Mhm.
Couldn't have described it better myself. That's it,
Yeah.
Carolina Grace.
Wonderful. Well, we've done an amazing tour around. I'm just thinking, was there something else that we spoke to? And we talked about placing your power, haven't we? We've talked about the where are you putting your attention? Are you giving your power to the external world via the head, you know, the man-made stuff, or are you taking your power back and seeking your own counsel
Right, right. And
through?
so in that, what I call coronation ritual, what happened is, for I don't know how many millions or billions of people tuned into that, I did not. What's happening is I just lost my train of thought too. Oh Lordy.
Well, that clearly
Oh,
that
what's happening is they are giving their power away to that authority that sits on a throne above them. They are in that moment, whether they are conscious of it or not, and it is very unconscious because it is very programmed. They are then putting their power underneath. They are standing under the authority on that throne. And as I discussed in my video that I did called The Ritual Coronation, all of those regalia that are symbols of authority and control, the reason why in the article that you sent to me about, you know, the coronation on May 6th and the Russian event on May 9th,
Yeah.
and why are they going back in the coronation and using all of this ancient ceremony and stuff? Because those symbols of regalia, of authority, power, and control go back over 5,500 years. All you have to do is bring it out and put it in front of them on that world stage through the broadcasting, and immediately those that are programmed fall into step line. Boom, boom, boom.
Into trance.
Into trance and into step. Yes, that's the authority that I look to.
And
Giving
having
their
gone through
power
trauma.
away.
Yeah, and having gone through trauma for you know, what is it, going on for 3 years now? It's so easy for people to go for what is simple, easy,
Yes,
and default, I don't have to think about it pattern.
yes. They're
Yeah.
Humanity has been worn out. What do they call it in boxing? Humanity's on the ropes, right?
Yes.
And the deep state of which the people that coronation ritual is a part of did that intentionally to humanity to try to continue to pull the power away from humanity.
Yeah, yeah. And yet each of us carries that power within us.
Yes.
And it's up to each of us to self-determine what our future will be, and where we will be more fully resourced, where we will choose to place our focus, our power.
Right, right. Because they know that the Christ awakening is happening. They know that the second coming of Christ is upon us. And Yeshua himself told me 2 years ago, the second coming of Christ is not a man on the earth. It is the Sophia consciousness emerging through each and every one of us. They know this is happening. So they're doing everything that they can to keep humanity from believing that they are Christed beings, that they are more powerful in and amongst just themselves as an individual than the dark forces are.
Yeah, which is why AI has suddenly skyrocketed, because technology firstly took our attention fully into our left brain, because that's how you process binary function. Then
Hmm.
you've got a handheld device that people now carry with them. I mean, I cannot. People don't understand when they ring me why I'm not always available, and it's like, well, I turn my phone off. You do
Right.
what?
Right.
Or I leave it at home. I
Right.
take the dog out for a walk. I leave it at. You do what?
Right.
It's just this conscious. It's a conscious choice. It's a tool that I want to use to ring people, to maybe check email from time to time, maybe text. But technology is kind of that final desperate weapon that we've all been conditioned into getting used to, as well. You wouldn't go out without your device.
Right.
And now with AI, it's almost like the final coup de grace, to sort of captivate people in that headlights again,
Right. Right. I call
and
that the Medusa
make the choice.
complex,
Yeah,
because what happens is you put your attention on that device and it paralyzes you. It turns
yeah,
you to stone. You become unproductive.
mm,
You cannot pull yourself away from it.
mm.
And that was intentional
Yes,
to
yeah,
again keep humanity blind to the fact that all of their power is within them and not in this devices. This technology is to serve you, not
yes.
you to serve it. It cannot be the master.
Mm.
It is a tool to serve you.
Which takes us back into that topic of social media platforms,
Yeah.
and how people are so anxious to check in, to see what other people are doing, to get their likes, to get their new friends. How many friends have you got? So it's been. I mean, often I will sit back and go, "Wow, this has been so brilliantly constructed."
Yes.
As an evil kind of takeover.
Yes.
Um, but to captivate people attention, because when I was growing up and I had half an hour bus ride to get to school, I would just sit and look out the window, because I never, or unless I read, but I didn't tend to read. I'd love to daydream, sit out the window and sit out the window, sit by the window and look out and daydream.
Right.
And that was one of my favorite parts of the day. But nobody's got any downtime anymore.
Right.
Everybody's still sitting in that left brain,
Mm-hmm.
processing thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and what they have to do, and what's on the technology,
Mm-hmm.
um, and nobody has the downtime to self-reflect, connect with their feelings,
Right.
unless they make that conscious choice.
Yes. And that's what it comes down to, Carolina Grace.
Mhm.
You empower yourself through your choices. You
Yeah,
disempower yourself through your choices. Everything is a choice. And anybody hearing this conversation has now had the opportunity for an awareness heightening. And that can break the spell
yeah,
once they choose, even if it's like withdrawal, like, okay, so maybe instead of being on Facebook all day long, I'll check in before I start my day. I'll check in at lunch and I'll check in, after dinner. That's even more than I do. I don't even go on Facebook every day, but at least it's a starting place where you can start to wean yourself off. You don't have to go cold turkey, but the awareness heightening and the choice, I'm going to start to wean myself back. I am going to turn off my phone when I go to bed.
mm,
I am going to leave my phone at home when I walk the dogs.
mm,
I'm going to choose to go outside and lay in the grass and look at the sky.
mm.
These are choices that every person can make that empowers them.
Yeah. And I always make if I'm in doubt about what to do, I always say, right, well, if I don't know what to do, it's not the right time to be doing anything.
Right.
What do they say in the if we have a problem in the West, we become human doings. We try and look outside and fix the problem.
Right.
But in the East, they will just sit down and meditate, and
Right.
wait for the divine inspiration.
Right.
And
Right.
so, And we also touched on this earlier, that if you don't feel, if there isn't any particular urge coming for you to do something, or if you're in the middle of overwhelm, just to sit still for a while
Right.
and just allow yourself some space and just see if anything arises. If it doesn't, do something that makes you feel good to start with.
Yes, the magic is in the space, and people have forgotten how to allow themselves external space, but most importantly, they've forgotten how to allow themselves internal space. So you can tell by walking into somebody's home, by getting into their car. If there's a lot of clutter, that's a manifestation of a cluttered mind. There's no space.
What does that tell you if you've got 8 animals then, nurse? Bordering on insanity? Something like that. In fact, we must have mesmerized them. They're all sitting asleep at my feet, which
I
is
know.
absolutely miraculous.
Yeah, they're adding their consciousness to the field here.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say they've all gone to sleep. That if you don't know how to create space for yourself,
Yeah.
two quick ways. Either go take a nap or go take a shower. I'm telling you, it'll shift you
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
that eternal now where you can have the space to allow whatever's desiring to come in to show up without trying to push on the river. If you're pushing against the river, you're working against yourself.
Mm. My favorite create space moment is going around the garden talking to the flowers and telling the ones off where they're allowing the weeds to grow too much and congratulating the ones that have come out despite the rain. So usually put my hands in the soil in some way, shape or form.
Yes. Yes.
So yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've kind of done a pretty complete circuit, really, of the
Yes,
things
we
that
have.
we thought
We
about,
have.
and they wonderfully interconnect, as you would expect.
Yes, yes. Well, I always love when you send me an invitation to do this. And like I said, the last 6 months have just been gangbusters for both of us. So it's nice that we were able to carve out this time to do this again today.
Yeah, so it's always so much fun and lovely to hear you place it into the astrological context, and you go, that's why that's coming up right now. Yes, it's all perfectly orchestrated from a cosmological and divine perspective.
Right, right. When you just know that whatever is desiring to show up will come through you, you get out of the way and let it show up.
Yeah, yeah. My favorite is decisions make themselves when the time is right. You don't have to do it.
There you go. What did my father used to say when we were kids? When in doubt, don't.
Don't. Yes, that's right. Same same rationale. Yes,
Right,
absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for Carolina Grace. Would you like to give your website and your YouTube channel so people can go see what else you've been doing?
Oh, well, that's kind. Thank you. So my website is heartledhumanity.com, and my YouTube channel is exactly the same.
Very
So
good.
yes, my Facebook page is very sparsely populated, but I am there somewhere.
Well, I'll put a link to your website in the description box below.
Thank you. That's lovely.
Yeah.
And
So,
thank you so much for for hosting the platform. And
sure.
yeah, it's always a joy. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I'm looking forward to the next conversation. Hopefully it'll be sooner than 6 months.
Yeah, I can't believe it's 6 months. Thank you.
Take care, Carolina Grace.
You too.
Mm.
Bye.